Welcome back to the 127 Fit podcast. Today's guest is the owner and founder of LiveFit. Today's guest is Thomas Niewohner. Thomas, I want to welcome you to the 127 Fit podcast.
Thank you, Quince. Happy to be here today.
For sure. So, Thomas, we're just going to dive right into things. I've got 4 questions I like to kind of start all my podcast conversations with. The first question I have for you is, how do you start your day? Do you have a specific morning routine or morning ritual you like to stick to on most mornings?
I absolutely do, and it's 7 days a week. I wake up early, usually between 4 and 4:30 without an alarm most days. And so the first thing I do, and I read this somewhere, I learned it from a self-improvement guru, that you want to start every day with a win. So the first thing I do, as exciting as it is I make my bed. So you accomplish something, starts off on the right note, and then I get dressed and I go downstairs to my kitchen, and then it's chore time. So I spend about an hour in my kitchen every morning, and that would be for doing any dishes, unloading dishwasher, mundane things like that. But I also get ready for my day when it comes to my food. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not one of those that likes to food prep for 3 hours on Sunday. So when I need food, I do it early. And so I'll cook my chicken or my rice or my potatoes, and I work it into that part of that routine.
Perfect.
And then I also make several shakers every day. So I make those all at once in the morning, so they're ready to go. I also make my second meal of the day, which is a shake, so I'll make that in the morning too. So I get all my kitchen chores done first and foremost, and then after that, then I usually go up to my study and start work.
Okay, perfect. The second question that I have for you, is there a favorite book or book that you like to gift often?
I don't have a favorite book.
Okay.
I've read many over the years. I have not been into reading as much lately. I want to get back into that, but I've never really had a favorite, but I do enjoy reading, and a lot of times it is self-improvement, self-help type. For
sure. Cool. Is there maybe a book, I know that you said you don't have like a favorite book necessarily, but has there been a book maybe that somebody has gifted to you that you found some value in?
No, the book that I have gifted in the past is by David Allen, called Getting Things Done, GTD, and it's a great organizational and time management book, and I still live by a lot of his principles. But when I had several people working for me in my commercial real estate company, one year I did for New Year's or Christmas, I bought the whole company that book.
Okay, cool.
I believed in it, and I wanted them implementing a lot of those principles, being productive for me and my company.
For sure, yeah. Getting things done. That's about as basic and simple as it gets. So that's cool. All right. So the next question that I have for you, Thomas, do you have a favorite quote, mantra, or word?
When you said you were going to ask that, because I think we all evolve as human beings, and so this is probably not as prominent in my life as it used to be, but it's still very applicable. It's by Nietzsche. It's that which does not kill us makes us stronger. And so we all go through tough times, and life itself is not easy. We all know this, no matter what it looks like from the outside. So I think we always need to find that inner strength and know we'll A, get through it, but B, will come through it stronger on the other side. So that one always gives me a lot of empowerment. Cool.
Love it. And I noticed as we're here at kind of the LiveFit headquarters and stuff, as you were giving me a tour before we started the podcast conversation here, I know there's some quotes, some different words around on the wall. So I'm sure, just that, like you said, there's different seasons, there's different words, there's different quotes, there's different mantras that kind of resonate with us during those different seasons of life, right?
They do. I mean, different seasons, but even different days, different moments. Quotes are something that you can always grab onto and relate to, and it's something outside of yourself that you can use to not only motivate you, but also give you a different frame of mind. And all my life I've been into quotes, and they've really motivated me. And actually, probably, 25 years ago, I published a quote calendar. It's a daily anthology where every day it's a flip quote calendar. You'd have a different quote. So I spent a lot of time choosing those quotes. Important. That resonated with me.
That's interesting. Cool. All right. Do you have a favorite or most listened to podcast? And maybe if you're not ingesting podcasts, maybe there's like a motivational speaker, or maybe just somebody that's really influential in your life.
That changes, and so I'm a very passionate person. That I like to. We were talking earlier before this started about flow.
Right.
And that's what I'm all about. And so, I don't have a favorite, but what happens is I'll listen or I'll watch a video or something, and I'll really grab onto something, and then I dive deep into that person, and I'll get on their bandwagon, and I'll start watching their videos, listening to their podcasts, buying their books. And so like last year I got really into Gary Vee.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, but then I'll go months without really being into him. But for
Right.
a while there, I just consume, and I just really get excited about what they're all about. And so
For sure.
So it's either motivational, call it self-improvement people, or then being big into the health and wellness and fitness fields. I'll follow a lot of those, call it athletes or coaches, because I'm constantly learning. I mean, even though I'm experienced, I'm considered an expert in my field, it's like every day I'm learning more. I mean, nobody ever is done learning, and that's what living is all about. If you stop learning, then you're really not alive.
Absolutely. That right there is a quotable quote that you just said. So if you're not learning, you're not living. Now, I really want to quickly touch on Gary Vee, because he's somebody that comes up quite often, I'd say, when I ask like if there's somebody that's their favorite, most listened to podcast, or somebody that's influential. Just kind of what's that one thing from last year that you really were attracted to Gary Vee that kind of like drew you in initially?
Well, I like his work ethic, and even though everybody knows he works harder than anyone, self-professed, but on top of that is authenticity. I think that's what is helped him rise to where he's at, and he's not elitist. He's like the opposite of that. He speaks the common language. He uses a lot of swear words, as we know, and but he relates to the everyday people.
Right.
And so I think a lot of the people that are known for motivational speaking and things like that, they are a little bit elite, and not everybody can relate with them. They're thinking, well, they're so different than me. He's an immigrant. He came over here with his family with nothing. His family built up a successful business. He learned and worked from a young age in the business. Then he built his own business, and people can relate with kind of the people that what do I want to say, the underdog.
Right.
People like to root for the underdog, and so now he's trying to help others, and I think he cares more about helping people than making money as much as he loves to make money. So
right.
he's real.
Cool. So that authenticity is something that really drew you in. That's something that it's just authenticity, vulnerability. It's very powerful, and that's cool that you kind of noticed that in Gary Vee. So
and to add to that, I think that's why the Instagram and YouTube celebrities, the ones that have gotten so popular, is they're a combination. I mean, they are popular, but at the same time, they are real, and that's where reality TV is popular and things. People want to relate.
For sure.
And the vulnerability, if you can show that, hey, this is what I looked like when I was out of shape, and I worked hard, and now look what I look like, or this is what I was like when I was broke, because I had nothing, and then now this is how I got there. People want to know how did you go from point A to point B? Cool.
Yep, absolutely. So, Thomas, we're gonna just kind of quickly here. I want to kind of just touch on like your younger years, kind of your childhood. So, if you don't mind sharing with myself and the 127 Fit podcast listeners, where did you grow up? What were those younger years like? Were you involved in extracurricular activities? Were you involved in sports? Just kind of paint a little bit of a picture of the childhood for us, if you don't mind.
Sure. I grew up in Franktown, Colorado, so not far from here. And most of my life was spent, actually, half of my childhood, I would say, probably was on a 10-acre site where we had horses, and I had a lot of chores. And so my dad also owned a ranch out in Kiowa, and so I worked there on the weekends a lot and in the summers. So I learned the value of hard work, manual labor, hard work. And my dad's a very hard-working individual, and he pushed me hard. He was hard on me, and so at the time, that's never fun. But looking back, I appreciate everything he did for me.
Sure.
Helped mold me into who I am today. And then I actually followed his footsteps in business, getting into real estate. But when I was younger and did work for him, he had several projects and buildings and things. So I also did landscape maintenance and painting and pulling weeds, all that fun stuff. So a lot of hard work.
Cool. Any siblings?
I do have one sister.
Okay,
and
cool.
I'm very close to her. She's 4 years younger than me. And,
Okay.
And then also just to answer a previous question we missed was sports. And sports have always been a huge part of my life.
Yeah.
And so I was always into sports growing up.
Cool. What was there like one sport that you really focused on, or were you kind of like myself and a lot of other people growing up just played anything and everything?
You know, I tried a number of different things. So I was very open to trying new things, new sports, and my parents encouraged me. So, you know, like a lot of young kids, soccer I did for 5-6 years.
For sure, yeah.
And then when I got into, junior high, it was experiment time, and, had to try different sports. And so I tried out for the basketball team and didn't make it. So guess what other sport is in the winter? Wrestling. Yeah. So I went out for that. Never had an interest in it before, but I did very well at it. And so my first match, I think I pinned the guy in 9 seconds.
There you go.
I like this.
Right.
So I wrestled through high school.
Okay.
And, went to state and
cool.
That kind of thing. And then I played a few years of football, but then when I got into high school, I stopped playing football, and I just didn't want to do sports year round. I decided, and then in the spring I did track. And
cool.
So at first I did some running events, but then I really got into the throwing events.
Okay.
And so I threw discus and shot put. And so I had the school record for discus. I went to Junior Olympics and state, and discus did not win, unfortunately.
Yeah,
but, that was my other sport that I excelled at.
Cool.
And one more thing that kind of applies back to LiveFit. So as a teenager, starting when I was 16, almost 17, I got into competing in bodybuilding. So I started working out at 13, got my first weight set, and it was the plastic concrete filled ones, and, the old Weeder weights. And so I really enjoyed that, and I had all those same quotes we've been talking about, in my basement up on the walls and things like that. And so I spent a lot of time there. So that's always been an important part of me is the weights and working out and just me and the iron. It's a nice thing. So I always depended on myself rather than the team sports, that kind of thing.
Cool, and I'm glad you brought that up. So you said you kind of started lifting weights at a very young age, around 13, and what was it through sports that you were introduced to lifting weights, or was there another avenue? Was it your dad or something? And then after that, you said you also started competing in bodybuilding. It sounds like as a teenager. So let's expound on that, because I started lifting weights somewhere going into my 4th grade year. I didn't compete until I was in my 20s, but there's just something that really, I think, especially for us young boys and stuff, it can really draw you in. So how did you get into lifting weights initially, and then just expound a little bit more on those experiences in competing? How did you get into competing? Did you have a coach? Like, just talk a little bit more about that, please.
So I got into it through my uncle.
Okay.
My uncle, my father wasn't really into weightlifting, but my uncle was into it. And so my uncle bought me, I don't know if it was for Christmas or my birthday, he bought a book by Franco Columbu.
Okay.
And so for those of you that don't know Franco, he was Arnold's best friend, and they lived together and worked together, trained together, very, very close. And so Franco was my first idol, and then of course everybody knew Arnold. Even back then. And so I was very impressed with Arnold as well. So those are the two that I was, call it motivated by, and but I wasn't really training specifically for sports. I think, like you mentioned, young boys, it's like, once you start getting interested in girls, as well as you're very insecure at that age, and you want to be strong, you want to be respected, and that kind of thing, and it's like where all the muscle megs come in with the sand getting kicked in the guy's face and stuff like that. So you want the respect,
right? Of course.
So I think you do it for a lot of reasons.
Yeah,
it's just kind of a male rite of passage, wanting to get bigger. It's primal.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what motivated me. And then I started competing, and because I was obsessed with the muscle magazines, Muscle Fitness and Flex and those, and then I bought more and more books, and so I knew like every bodybuilder by name, and I just really got into the sport itself.
For sure.
So I decided I wanted to do it too and try. So which I did, and I didn't have a coach, and coaches weren't real prevalent back then. Right. It's a fairly new phenomenon, really. And so I did everything, including how to peak and how to even apply tan and everything through books and magazines.
Wow.
I didn't have anybody that took me under their wing.
Uh-huh.
But here's something that's pretty unique also, that I think most people that are listening to this podcast that have competed before know who Jeff Taylor is. So Jeff, when I went to college, so I'd competed a few years already. In my freshman year up at CU Boulder, Jeff owned the gym up there that I trained at. And so we got to be friends and know each other. And then I competed 1 year while I was in college. And so Jeff and I had a relationship at the time. And so that kind of disappeared for a while. Fast forward to 5 years ago is when I got back into competing, because men's physique came around in 2012-13.
Yeah.
And it was more of that fitness model look with the board shorts versus the giant bodybuilder with the string bikini.
Right.
And
Yep.
so I'm like, this fits my body style a lot better. And they had, I didn't know about, the master's division and the physique class. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of fitting. This is kind of cool. I think I could do well. And so I went to a show and watched it. And then I'm like, I saw who was up there. I'm like, oh yeah, I can do well at this.
Yeah.
And so, I decided a month after that I was going to do it. And that's what got me back into competing.
Cool. Now, just throughout your story and your history, Thomas, has lifting weights, has that always been a part of your life, or has it kind of waned? Was there maybe some time where you didn't work out and then you got back into it, or was it pretty steady, pretty consistent throughout?
Very consistent.
Okay, cool.
And so the longest I've ever gone without touching a weight, I think, was a week.
Wow.
Ever.
Okay.
And that was on a vacation. I love it. For me, it's mind, body, soul. And
Absolutely.
There's times that I'll go back to the gym same day, not because I need to train for
Right.
my body, but I need it for my mind and
Yeah,
my soul. Because
for sure.
I just need to get back in my happy place.
Cool,
Right.
cool. Now, I wanna step back into kind of like your story. So you mentioned going to college at CU Boulder, so University of Colorado. For those people that aren't listening here locally, but college. Let's talk about that. What did you study, and just kind of what was that experience like in Boulder?
Yeah, so when I went to Boulder, like so many people, I didn't know what I wanted to major in. I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. And that kind of thing. But I did have an idea what I thought I wanted to do and be, and that was going to be a doctor, because I was always interested in the human body.
Cool.
So not only was I into sports, but I was into exercise physiology, I was into nutrition, and so it's just been a core piece of who I am. Well, in the summer, I can't remember if it was before my freshman year or between freshman and sophomore, I visited my grandparents down in Sun City, Arizona, and I borrowed a bicycle and went for a long bike ride, and I got stuck way out of town with no water, 100-degree heat, and so I needed to find water, and so there was a nearby hospital, so I just said, okay, I'll go in there and get a drink and get out of the heat for a minute. And just walking through that hospital, I did not like the feeling of being there. And it's as us health and fitness enthusiasts would probably all agree, is our healthcare system is sick care. Preventative medicine is underutilized, and it was depressing to me. And I was like, I do not want to spend my life in this environment. I decided, regardless of wanting to practice medicine, it's like I just don't want to be in this type of environment. So I decided that day, no, I'm not going to be a doctor anymore. So it was a turning point for me.
Yeah.
And so I've always loved business, and I've been an entrepreneur all my life, and I've started tons of little fun little hobby companies and things like that. And so I decided, okay, I'm gonna transfer to the business school and figure it out from there. But I knew I wanted to go that route, and that's what I did. Is I transferred from liberal arts to the business school at CU at that point.
Okay, cool. All right, so then after you got done in Boulder, after you graduated, what did those years look like?
Well, initially, actually, I got recruited by a Fortune 500 company called National Chem Search, and not a sexy business. It was industrial maintenance chemicals, and so we would sell to large companies, institutions, that kind of thing. And 55-gallon barrels of stuff, or gallon of cleaning supplies and oils and that kind of stuff. So not fun.
Right. Yeah.
So I did that for only 6 months.
Okay.
And my territories were broad. I mean, it was in northern Colorado. I had the 3 big counties up north, Larimer and Weld and one other. And so I decided, okay, this isn't for me. And then while I was in college, I started an advertising and design company. I've always loved design and art and things. And so I had done that for about 2 years, and it was operating in the black. We had some decent clients. I had one partner, but I still didn't see that having the capability of making good money because the margins were very small in that business. So I didn't think that was my future either, and that's why I went into the sales job. Well, my father had been in commercial real estate his entire career, so I grew up with it. Well, I'm one of those. I mean, my dad and I are both alphas, and so I was like, I don't want to follow in daddy's footsteps. You know, I'm going to blaze my own trail. Right? And when you're young, you don't realize the value of your parents in general, but also the value of connections. And,
Absolutely.
You know, it's so important of what somebody can do, of a door being opened or somebody spending extra time mentoring you. You have this independent streak, and you don't think you need anybody.
Right.
Well, I opened my eyes. I mean, it wasn't right away. My father had to help open my eyes for me, but he's like, well, and he did it the right way. He's like, why don't you come and do some of my design work for me? Okay, so I did his brochures. I read it as logo, business cards, that kind of thing. And then he's like, your dad doesn't do so bad, right? And I'm like, yeah, no, we've had a good life. And he's like, well, just consider this, and maybe you might want to get into real estate. And at first I was reluctant and fought him a little bit, but then I'm like, back in my mind, yeah, Dad does do pretty well. And I'm like, plus you got that independence factor. It's kind of entrepreneurial, and I'm like, I became open, and so I decided, okay, fine, I'll do it. And so I got my real estate license, and then he said, all right, so for the first year, I'm going to have you on salary. It was like $24,000 a year, and no commissions. And so then I was basically doing 80% of the work on all of our deals together. He was getting the big check, I was getting the little check, and I was resentful. I'm like, Dad, I got this. I'm ready to go. He goes, no, our deal was 1 year. And my dad was one of those that does everything in writing. So even when I, bought my first bicycle, I had to borrow the money, and I had to do a promissory note. So he's taught me the value of legal agreements.
That's important.
I'm like, but it's family. It's like we don't need. He goes, family needs it even more because you need to protect the relationship. So today, we might be seeing eye to eye, but in 6 months, we don't want any misunderstandings. So it really protects the relationship most of all. And so we had an agreement, and an employment agreement, and so I had to go 365 full days. I remember, I was like, when that last day came up, it was like, okay, it expires. Now I can go out and make the big bucks. So that's how we started. So I worked for him for several years before I went out on my own.
Now, I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of different people on the podcast, and again, just the other day I was having this exact same conversation because, the guest just grew up in, out here in the Littleton area and stuff, and an amazing upbringing, right? And he's a head strength and conditioning coach for a professional basketball team over in China and stuff. But over and over again, just that family environment is so profound and powerful in shaping who we become as adults, right? So just that influence, that powerful, positive influence of your dad. I know the work ethic you kind of already mentioned, Thomas, was something that he really instilled in you when you were younger. Right. What's maybe one other thing that you have really taken away from your dad and you've really held on to that's really positively impacted your life, personally, business, however you kind of want to look at it or take that?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things, but the first thing that comes to mind is, as I described earlier, of getting up early, getting a head start on the day, and he was of the belief that he was the first to the office every day, and then it became a competition between him and I of who would get there first, of course. Right. But that was one thing I learned.
Cool.
Plus, he was just a real hard worker. Head down. Just did whatever it took, and then he had good values, and especially with real estate. I mean, you get a lot of people that aren't exactly ethical. Right. So I saw firsthand many different times that he could have made a lot more money. And even if it wasn't, illegal, it might not be ethical, or it might just not be right, and he passed on a lot of things because of just being an honest man. So I think that was something I've taken away as well. For sure, you just can't put money on a value. You can't put that kind of value on a value.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. Cool.
Absolutely. But
I want to touch on, you kind of talked about this as you were kind of just talking about your stepping into real estate and working alongside with your dad, for your dad, kind of the networking connecting type thing, like you kind of mentioned earlier in our conversation, that when we're younger, we don't realize, and I am right there. I've just realized this honestly through the podcast, but when we're younger, we don't realize, most of us don't realize, even if we're involved in team sports and we kind of always have that community around us, most of us, again, don't realize the importance and the value in networking and connecting with people and staying in contact with others. So just overall, obviously, with entrepreneurship, with real estate, now having, LiveFit and some of your other adventures that you've done in the past, like, the networking, the connecting, knowing people and stuff like that has played a impactful role in your life. But just speak on to maybe the younger listener that's maybe just getting into fitness, maybe they're just getting into real estate, they're just getting into, whatever they went to college for. Just speak on, for you personally, Thomas, the importance of staying connected with people, meeting new people, having a network, really just being involved in a community and having a community that you can rely upon.
Yeah, and this is probably the most valuable thing, but also the most difficult thing, because you can't quantify it.
Right,
and
right.
What's so difficult is, like, for instance, what we're doing here today is we both know in the back of our mind subconsciously that this is of value to each of us.
Absolutely.
We're both giving before we get. And I think that's something that society's been losing is, and I don't know if it's selfishness or maybe it's immediate gratification, that people want to see a result and people aren't willing to plant the seed for later. And I think that's what the key is with these networking relationships, is really what you're doing is you're expanding your network, but you're planting all these seeds. And it may be months or even years from now that these will pay off, and some of them never do, and that's okay too. But then I think that exposure is really important too. So besides giving, you also just need to be out there. And I think that if you lock yourself away and you're not exposed to other people, I mean, that's what business is all about. And one way or another, whether it's a product or a service, it's people. People are either buying it, they're using it. You can't do it by yourself, and so I think that, I've had so many stories of everybody knows if you're trying to network because you want somebody's business, sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. But what people don't realize, sometimes it's the most inopportune times that you actually do meet somebody. It could be in the grocery store or a coffee shop. And that goes for dating too. It's like, and that's why people always say, hey, when you're least looking for it, you'll probably find it. But it applies to business as well. It's just people and human relationships. I've had people just as recently as 2 weeks ago interrupt a coffee meeting because they overhear something.
Right.
And they're like, hey, well, I've got a piece of land. I'm really sorry to interrupt you, but I overheard you speaking about this piece of land you're looking for. And I'm like, oh, really? And so I connected with this realtor, and she provided me information, and it didn't end up working out, but you just never know.
You never know.
And so you just need to expose yourself to more touch points, more people. Yeah.
Perfect.
Which is the definition of networking.
Yeah. Beautiful. Now, before we kind of get into more of your personal fitness journey, and then specifically, I really want to spend the rest of our time talking about LiveFit. I wanna just ask you about kind of like goal setting, however you want to take it. Some people like to use that word, some people don't. But there's the vision board things. How do you kind of set something up to work towards? Are you a big goal person? Do you kind of just let things unfold as they're supposed to? Do you have a vision board? What does that look like for you to chase after or pursue something that you really want to accomplish in your life?
Yes, I've always been huge with goal setting, and in the last number of years, I can't tell you how many it's been, I have not been as intentional as I should be. And I think that a lot of times when you're reading about somebody or you're doing an interview like we are, it's very easy for me to give all the right answers.
Of course.
But at the same time, it's like, I know the things that I need to do, and I also know what I'm not doing that I should be doing. And so it goes back to what we were saying with fitness and everything else too. It's like it's a constant checks and balances and intentionality of figuring out, okay, well, you do know what you should be doing,
right.
but are you doing it, and are you doing it on a regular basis? And so I like mind mapping. I've got a very active ADD style brain, and I think most entrepreneurs do. And I think with all the electronic distractions, it only makes it worse for everyone. And so I think it's very key, whether you're into journaling and you want to handwrite things, or you want to type in your computer or your phone, you somehow need to get it out of your head, and then you need it to basically have it where you can then access it again. So whatever system works for you is the key, and you can use that for goals. You can use it for your planning. You can use it for your even your to-do list, whatever works. But there's no set system that works for everybody. But it's like, I think you need to get it. You need to process it and figure out what it is, and then get it out of your head and onto paper or onto a device, and then you need to revisit it.
Beautiful. Now I'm gonna challenge you here, because you just said something that's very profound for all of us human beings. Most of the time, most of us know what we're supposed to be doing, but again, there's times and seasons of life where that kind of wanes. So what's something for you, Thomas, like right now as we sit here, because you just said, and you're 100% right, it's so easy when we're in a setting like this, and I've done so many of these conversations, I can tell when somebody's just kind of giving me the right answers or whatever. And you just said, like, in these type of settings, it's pretty simple just to kind of say what you think somebody might want to hear, or what you're supposed to say, kind of that professional language or whatever. But what's something, as we sit here today, that you should be doing that you're not in this moment?
A lot of it is what I just described, of doing that better and more frequently, because I do it, but I don't always follow through.
Yeah.
And so what happens, and I think this is the case with who knows what percentage, but the vast majority of everybody out there is just because you need to be doing it. It's not that maybe that you're lazy, and maybe
Right.
it is, but a lot of it is in your mind. You have this justification of, I'll get to it later.
For
I'm
sure.
too busy right now. So I think what we're all caught up in is putting out fires. And a lot of times that's because we are taking care of the urgent, but not necessarily the important. And so I know for myself, I need to do a better job of taking care of what's important first, because it's always nice to cross things off your, whether it be a real list or a mental list, and you feel productive because you're busy.
Right.
And I get sucked into this as much as everybody else is. I'm busy, and then you feel like, okay, well, I must be being productive because I'm so damn busy. Well, the results speak for themselves. So I think that I have not done a good job of always addressing the priorities and what's important, what needs to be done first. And I want kind of a clean life and a clean, I like order and everything, but I've kind of fallen behind in my personal opinion of my life. And so then once you're behind, then you're always playing catch up, and you're always putting out fires, and you can't spend that time that you need to work on those more important, bigger projects. And those are the ones that are, I always call high leverage activities. So in order to make money, so if you're in real estate as a good example, but it's like you don't make money by having the most organized files. You don't make money because your computer is cleaned up. It's like you make money when you do transactions. And how do you do transactions? You've got to get clients. How do you get clients? It goes back to our networking. And then once you have a client, then what do you need to do? You need to find a property for them. So you need to be doing those higher leverage activities that are going to yield the bigger results, rather than just being busy with keeping up your social media, which of course is important, but at the same time, it's like there's a lot of things that aren't high leverage activities that aren't going to immediately yield the result or the paycheck at the end of the day. So I think I get caught up in the busyness of life. And being a single father too, it's like I am legitimately very busy, but I've got to do a better job, admittedly, at addressing my priorities and making sure that those get taken care of first.
Cool. And I appreciate that authenticity, because that's real life, right? I mean, that's, you go to Instagram and it's everybody wants to go to the stories, because the stories is the behind the scenes. We can all have a Facebook page that looks nice, just like what you're talking about, like, having your computer cleaned out or whatever. You can have a Facebook page that looks nice. You can have your Instagram main feed look nice and have all these different things, gizmos and gadgets, but everybody wants to go to like the Facebook stories. Everybody wants to go to the Instagram stories, because that's where you see, kind of the nuts and bolts, the nitty gritty of behind the curtain of our lives. So I appreciate the authenticity. I appreciate you touched on that. Now let's spend the rest of our time kind of talking about LiveFit And before we do that, though, I want to talk about you getting back into to competing. You said that you got into men's physique. I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago after competing when you were younger. Kind of like, what was that experience like? Kind of getting back into competition after all the years, and then let's just, after you kind of get done talking about that, let's transition into LiveFit. What is LiveFit? Where is it located? And just take a deep dive into all things LiveFit.
Yes. So once I got back into competing, again, my personality is I want to go all out.
Right,
and,
right.
So I gave it everything I had, and I spent a ton of time learning. I hired a coach right away, Alex Carnero.
He's been on the podcast.
Okay.
Awesome,
yeah,
dude.
Great guy.
Yes.
And so I learned a lot from Alex. He definitely earned his money because
For sure.
I was constantly asking him questions. I wanted to learn. I wanted to know why. I'm not one of those that if somebody says, well, do this, I don't just automatically do it. I'm like, okay, I want to know why. I'm not questioning that person, but I want to know the science behind it.
Sure.
I want to know, okay, well, why am I doing this exercise instead of another one, or this rep scheme, or why am I eating that, And so I asked Alex a lot of questions. He was a wonderful resource, and we learned a lot. But then on my own, then I was doing my own research. And so I was reading, I was watching videos, and so I just immersed myself. And then I, trained my butt off. I was super strict on my diet, and I did well. So I competed in 15 and 16, and I had 3 top 5s at national shows.
Awesome.
And masters. My goal was to turn pro, which I came up short. So then after that, I had to choose. I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do to push it to the next level so I can attain my goal? And then what happens if I do get my goal? I had to ask myself. Somebody else, my girlfriend at the time, actually put this bug in my ear, but she's like, okay, because she thought I was obsessive, so it was a little bit of a rub. But she had some good points, and now that I'm out of it, I can look back and see how right she was with a lot of things she told me. But one of her things was, okay, well, great, you get your pro card, then what are you going to do? I was like, I just want to have it. She goes, you're going to want to do a pro show, right? I'm like, yeah, probably. Okay. And she goes, once you do your pro show, what are you going to want? And I'm like, a place. Yeah. She goes, once you place, what are you going to want? Win. And it's like, it was kind of a never-ending thing.
For sure.
So I had to decide, back to priorities, how important is this to me? Getting on a stage and, competing against these other people of, who has the best physique, which I loved. I loved the passion of getting there. I loved being the artist of my own body and being able to create something that was a work of art. And it was up to me to decide how I wanted it to look. You have your genetics, but at the same time, you can focus on different areas to say, hey, I really want to accentuate this area, or this is a weak point, I need to bring this up. And so I really enjoyed that. So I'm more passionate now than I was when I was competing about that aspect of it. Getting on the stage, even at the time, I never really enjoyed it, which wasn't my thing. Some people love the stage, it wasn't. So I decided I was done. I didn't want to compete anymore. My life had become out of balance. And so I admitted that to myself. And so I saw other pieces of my life kind of fall by the wayside. And when you're in it, you can't see the forest for the trees, and I could justify everything. Plus, when you're living that life, you're surrounding yourself with other people that have the same blinders on.
Right.
And so it's all justified because we're all the same. We're all doing the same thing. That's what I'm consuming every day with social media and everything else is these same people like me. So when I stepped out of it, I was like, okay, I think I am a little bit obsessed. And so I decided, I'm going to have better balance in my life. Now I still, track my macros. I weigh my food. I work out just as hard, but I'm not pushing it that last 10 or 20%, which ultimately is not healthy for your body when you really push it to that extent.
100%.
So that's the competing side for me, and awesome. I'm proud of some top 5 finishes and that kind of thing. Looking back, but
you should be.
But now I just want to have what I call is I want to have a good street body.
Yeah.
So that's all that matters, not the stage anymore.
Yeah. No dad bod, right?
Like I said, this has been my passion all my life.
I know, so I love it. It's absolutely great. It's great.
So that segues into LiveFit.
Yes.
So LiveFit was a passion of mine because health and fitness is, and so I had other ventures which we won't get into now, but that were kind of in the health and wellness space that I had tried in the past. But being in commercial real estate, I had a lot of practitioners of health and wellness come to me looking for space, and the problem with that was is a single massage therapist, a single chiropractor, a single personal trainer. There aren't space options out in the marketplace for them, as you know. And so, the ones that wanted to open their own business, it's like, okay, you're either going to need to hire more people so you have a bigger operation, or you need some partners. And then you look at the overhead of what it costs to lease, 1,000 square feet, 2,000 square feet. And, I'd actually represented several people that opened their own, personal training facilities and those types of businesses. But, for the most part, it didn't work for them. And so ultimately I started, even though I wouldn't be involved, I want to steer them the right way so they can be successful, not so I can get a commission.
For sure.
I said, your best bet is probably to, either go on Craigslist or through social media, find somebody who has a room to sublet. And you can rent a small room, a massage therapist sometimes, teams up with a chiropractor, that kind of thing, and just rent one room. Well, even then, the overhead that they have per month, if they don't work enough, they're upside down. And that's a lot of pressure, as people don't want that weight on their shoulders. So there's a model that, the salon suite model out there that the beauty industry started 20 or so years ago, that has been extremely successful and it's franchised by a number of companies. Now, I thought, for the health and wellness sector, why not do the same thing? Why not have a larger space with, multiple little small suites that I can then lease out to other people? And it's kind of like a co-working, like a WeWork environment or an incubator, but for health and wellness again, for those types of entrepreneurs, because nobody's really provided that in the marketplace. And so then I thought about, okay, well, what about on demand? Do you think about, it kind of applies to hot desking with co-working, but then like the Uber model. It's like you go onto your app, you say, I need a car, you click, it debits out of your bank account, car arrives, boom, you're done. So I was like, why can't you do that with space? And so, people can book a space at LiveFit for an hour anytime they want. And on the fly, they could do it, hey, I need it, 20 minutes from now, or I need it, in 3 weeks. They go onto our calendar and they book, and they pay for it right then and there, and it's their room. Then they get access to the space through an app. And so that lets them into the building, the space, and they come in and do their thing. It's turnkey. Everything is fully equipped with equipment, and they do it's turnkey, so they do their business and they leave.
Cool.
It's very clean and smooth.
Yes, and so talk about a little bit of because you gave me a tour, and it's a beautiful facility. So you've got space for personal trainers, you got space for chiropractors, you got space for massage therapists. Just talk about the type of people within health and fitness that could benefit from using the facility.
Absolutely, and it's one size fits all. So any kind of use that you have, you can do it out of here. And so basically the way it's set up. And so what LiveFit stands for is mind, body, and soul. And so it's like, I think that's really starting to catch on, that people realize that the mental fitness, the fitness of their soul deep inside, that's just as important as their body.
Absolutely.
And when your soul or your mind is sick, you will manifest physical symptoms. So I'm big into the holistic treatment side, that you need to treat all of those different components.
Yes.
So with that being said, when you walk into the facility, you go through the lobby, and then the first 3 rooms on the right are all counseling suites. So they're all set up with nice, comfortable seating for a psychologist, psychotherapist, counselors, anything of that nature. Or if you just wanted to have a consultation, so anything that you just want a comfortable seating environment. I've got an office, which is what we're sitting in. People can have a consultation where they want to be able to write or put something on a table, works well. Or if you just wanted to have dedicated workspace. Then as you go further, then I've got a flex room, and I've left that one open, so that way if you have specialized equipment you want to bring in, that room is open for that. And then I've got 3 therapy treatment rooms. They're all set up with massage tables, but you could utilize those for anything, any kind of soft tissue therapy, acupuncture, any kind of medical treatment. So you have those tables to work with. And then I've got 2 chiropractic suites with chiropractic tables, pelvic drops. All of the therapy suites have the therapist stool and everything, and so they're set up as a turnkey type situation. And then the big room is our fitness studio, and so that's the training studio for the personal trainers, also for the physical therapists. We've got professional grade equipment, just anything you would need on that side of the coin. And then I think we were talking when we did the tour too, is like something I've had a lot of demand for is for the private photo shoots. And so I've had several of those recently. I think a lot of you have probably seen them on social media that follow both of us. And what's so nice about that is versus going to a busy gym like a 24-hour fitness. I mean, can you imagine setting up for a shoot? And we've all seen it, and it's disruptive to the people working out. It's disruptive to the people trying to do the shoot.
For sure.
That there's everybody else around there, looking or getting in your way. So it's very distracting. So this is a great environment if you wanted to come in and do, a video shoot or a photo shoot and that kind of thing. And I'm getting some professional lights from a friend of mine that's
awesome.
A photographer that's going to leave them here for me. And
cool.
That they that my clients and customers can use.
Good deal. Now let's touch on, and we've got to wrap things up here. I know you've got some other appointments and things like that here in a little bit. So you've got a grand opening for LiveFit this coming Saturday. So why don't you just touch on the physical address? What time is the grand opening? Maybe touch on some of the sponsors. I know I've seen some different things on social media, so why don't we talk about that, give the exact date, things like that.
Certainly. So the date is this Saturday, the 29th, which is Leap Day. So I've named it Leap Into LiveFit.
Yep, I saw that. That's good, man. That's good marketing right there. I love it.
I thought so. Kind of applied to
of
the
course.
fitness side of things. So
beautiful.
So I grabbed onto that when I came up with it.
Yeah.
So it's from 3 to 7.
Okay.
And my location is on Broadway in Littleton. Address is 7261 South Broadway, and we're in the lower level. You just follow the signs. It's located basically between Arapahoe Road and Dry Creek, right on Broadway.
Perfect.
And as far as sponsors, we've got a lot of great sponsors, and so I'm still securing a couple more, which I'm getting ready to announce, and I better not announce them until.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
Yep. But I've got a really good one that I spoke to yesterday. But we mentioned Jeff Taylor earlier with Muscle Quest, and so Jeff will be here, and
awesome.
He's contributed 2 tickets to the Mile High as part of his giveaway donation.
Cool.
And then I've got Max Muscle Denver South, Brian Cash, and so they are providing a free 2-pound tub of protein, and then also a weight loss slenderizer drink as well for the giveaway. And then I've got Tidal Wear clothing,
cool,
which were just introduced to me by Brian actually, and. I get clothing people all the time that want me personally to sponsor them and wear their stuff, and most of it I'm very unimpressed with.
Right, of course.
I mean, surprise, surprise, I usually wear LiveFit.
Right.
So it's kind of nice that LiveFit apparel helps me promote my business.
Of course.
But Tidal Wear is wonderful. I mean, I went to their website, great looking stuff. I was very proud to have them. So they're going to give away a couple apparel items, and then I've got Revive MD. So they are actually the hormone clinic that I've gone to for several years. Dr. James Benoist. And so they're going to be giving free B12 shots for people, which is nice. And then also coupons for a free initial consult as well as blood work. That's about $160 value. And then they're going to do 1 free month of therapy, which is $250 value as part of the giveaway.
Cool.
And so then Thiago Harvey is a sponsor and friend of mine, and so he's been very active in helping promote this, and actually is the one that introduced you and I.
Yep, 100%.
And so, as you know, he does so many different things with my healthy lifestyle community and with his product line and everything like that. So he'll be here as well, and then I've got one of my clients who's a renter here called the Facility Denver. So him and Dr. Colin Fahey and I have been teaming up on doing some things outside of this facility as well, which I'll through my social media announce in the future. But he'll be here, and Neil Rasmussen is the massage therapist with his outfit who will be giving free chair massages. So if I can find a spare minute, I know a lot of people will be talking to me that day, but plan to get one of those myself. And I've got an exciting food sponsor that I'll be hopefully announcing later today.
Cool. So if somebody wants to kind of follow along, I'm gonna ask you one more question before we wrap it up, but just to kind of put the cap on LiveFit and everything that's going on this coming Saturday, February 29th for the grand opening. In terms of, let's see here, just if somebody wants to follow along and find out a few more of the sponsors that you're going to announce in terms of like social media, website, where's all of that information at for LiveFit and then in yourself personally?
Sure. So on Facebook, that's where the event is actually. So if you want to go to Facebook, you can find the event, Leap into LiveFit. And so my personal name obviously is my Facebook account. Thomas Niewohner, which is Niewohner. And then I've also got, of course, my LiveFit Facebook page, which is, if I remember it, it's at LiveFit, it's Wellness Suites. It's just Wellness Suites. But of course, you can access it from my personal page.
Right.
On Instagram, my Instagram is LiveFit Focused. And then my company is LiveFit_Wellness. So any of those social media pages, you could learn more about LiveFit as well as the events itself.
And now, if somebody is interested in using the LiveFit facility, you were talking, I think earlier, maybe before we turn on the mic, you actually go to a website or the website to kind of like select the slot or the time frame that you want to use it. Is that correct? And what's that website?
Yes, and you can learn a lot more about the facility and everything too, but it's very simple. It's livefit.fit.
Okay, perfect.
And so there's a lot of links there to book a room, and then a calendar will pop up, and you just click, where you want to book and which room you want to book, and off you go.
Beautiful. So the last thing I just want to touch on here in closing, you mentioned earlier, Thomas, that you're a single dad. I know on your personal social media there's pictures of your son playing basketball, and I'm sure that's a very important, integral part of your personal life. What is just maybe, in a couple of words, if you can do that, because I know that's kind of hard, but in a couple of words, what has fatherhood meant to you?
Well, as you were speaking, what came to my mind is pride and joy. I love those two boys more than life itself, and we have a wonderful relationship and enjoy doing things together. And as a lot of you other parents know, it's like your kids can be so different from each other. And so I have one son that is more of my free spirit, and he's actually got some longer hair.
Yeah, he's the one that I saw on your Instagram.
So he loves to ride in the back of the Harley with me. My older son is scared to death of it. He does not like the Harley, but he loves to go mountain biking with me. So I've got my things with each kid, but as they've gotten older, it's like you miss the little guys, but at the same time, you get to start doing things with them as human beings, and having similar interests. So I'm very happy that they share some of my passions.
Cool. Pride and joy. I love it. That's very well put. So we've kind of already touched on the social medias and everything. I just want to thank you, Thomas, for having me over here at LiveFit. Thank you for the tour. I'm looking forward to coming to the open house, the grand opening on Saturday, and just connecting with some people. So thank you for the time. Thank you for sharing a little bit of your story. I think once the dust settles and stuff, I'm going to want you to come back on, because I like to have longer conversations, but just because of other things, we're not going to have that long of a conversation today. But I'd love to have you come back on and love to dig into more of the real estate and just maybe some of your other business adventures. But thank you for the time, and thank you for coming on to the 127 Fit podcast today.
Certainly. It's been my pleasure, and I really appreciate you having me, Quince, especially knowing my event's coming up and getting some additional exposure out there. So I've really enjoyed our conversation as well, and everybody didn't even get to hear our impromptu 15-minute conversation.
Right, I know. We should have turned on the mic before.
I almost told you we should have just been doing this at the same time.
For sure. Cool. All right. So 127 Fit podcast listeners, once again, thank you so much for your listening ears. They're always greatly appreciated. If you'd like to find out more about my guests or myself personally that I'm bringing onto the podcast, you can find all of that information on Instagram at 127fit. Facebook is at Quentin Vars. LinkedIn is at Quentin Vars. If you guys would do me a huge favor and please leave a 5-star rating and review, and also subscribe to the podcast, that would be cool. If you think you would be a great guest, or if you have a friend or an acquaintance you think would be a great guest or guest for the 127 Fit podcast, I would just ask that you would send me an email or give this email out, 127fit@gmail.com. And one other favor I'd ask of you guys, as you are listening to the podcast and you're finding great value in a specific episode or episodes in which I know you are, please take that specific episode and episodes that you're finding that great value in of the 127 Fit podcast and share it on your Facebook and Instagram stories using the hashtag be someone to follow. And then per the usual, I will leave you with Proverbs 24:10, which states, if you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small. This time until next time, I will catch you guys later.